As you know, all colleges and universities in Ontario are signing a 2017-2020 Strategic Mandate Agreement with the Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Development. This process has had its lumps and bumps, and there will be a provincial lessons learned group to review how to improve the process and outcomes as we are already starting the discussions for SMA3. Our SMA2 will be posted once it has been signed by all parties, hopefully by the end of October. As a reminder, within the SMA2, there are 35 system-wide metrics and 14 institution-specific metrics. Individual system-wide metrics will be measured across all colleges using a common calculation formula described in the data dictionary entitled Maisdy Metrics Management. The SMA2 framework has 5 sections, with associated system-wide metrics and institution-specific metrics. The institution-specific metrics for each of the 5 sections relate to the points of differentiation in the SMA narrative. As we have concluded the development of the SMA2 covering 2017 to 2020, we turn our attention to developing and implementing the strategies that will help us reach our commitments articulated in the SMA2 and measured by the specific metrics. These strategies will be incorporated into the 17-18, 18-19, and 19-20 business plans. As we address how we will reach our SMA2 goals, this work is also a prelude to developing the next strategic plan and academic plan. The development of strategies and objectives will require an increased level of innovative thinking to find creative solutions and methods for us to attain SMA goals and metrics. In the coming year, innovation will become a focus theme in leadership improvement opportunities. All of the work on SMA will also put us on a strategic path towards our construction of the next SMA3 for the years 2020 to 23. We now have a 3-year opportunity to be more deliberate in establishing our differentiation platform for SMA3 and the associated metrics. Our next steps are to start exploring the strategies and objectives we want to consider both short-term and long-term. In preparation for differentiation funding, which is scheduled to be implemented with the next SMA3, all colleges were asked to assign percentages to reflect their focus on differentiation in the SMA2. In Fleming's SMA2, we identified that, like all colleges, Fleming focuses on student success, programs, and teaching and learning as our core mission. For the purposes of differentiation, we are directing our attention on aspects not common to all colleges. Fleming assigned 20% to student experience, 25% to innovation in teaching and learning, 20% to access and equity, 20% to research excellence and impact, and 15% to innovation, economic development, and community engagement. It's important to note that the ministry will not be publicizing this differentiation section of the SMA2, but it is unclear how the section will be dealt with in SMA3. There are 2 other sections of the SMA that will not be public. A section on other sustainability issues and a section on projected weighted funding units and corridor midpoint. In addition, a more detailed description was given within an appendix that relates to strategic areas of program strength and expansion. This appendix, too, will not be publicized by the ministry. Before we can address strategies and objectives, let's look at each section of the SMA and associated metrics to determine the gap between where we are today and the bottom of the target range for 1920. The short SMA2 differentiation description about Fleming's student experience is provided. In the SMA2, the metrics targets are expressed as a range. When considering both system-wide and institution-specific metrics, Fleming has an overall gap of 2.25% in student experience. If student satisfaction with facilities is removed, because the issues with SIF renovations could skew this assessment, the gap is 5.94%. Innovation in teaching and learning is Fleming's highest weighted differentiation area at 25%. In the narrative, we note our leadership in natural resources and environmental science programs, our intention to invest in new and flexible teaching and learning approaches, and our commitment to cross-disciplinary study, experiential learning, and career development that is consistent with the recommendations found in the provincial paper, Building the Workforce of Tomorrow. In terms of metrics for this section, there are 9 system-wide metrics from which all colleges will be assessed. Our overall gap in this area is 48.73%. Access and equity is weighted at 20%. Here is the narrative differentiation that is in the SMA for this area. The number of system-wide metrics being used to evaluate access and equity is 15. The total gap for access and equity is 44.78. Applied research excellence and impact has the greatest gap to close by the end of 2019-2020. We are anticipating some major transformational change in this area for Fleming. This differentiation area has a midpoint weighting of 20%. And the last section of innovation, economic development, and community engagement has a gap of just 4.39% and a differentiation weighting of 15%. So this slide assesses our gaps in relation to our weighted differentiated areas. We see that our highest weighted area is innovation in teaching and learning at 25%, and it has the second highest gap to address at 48.73%. Innovation, economic development, and community engagement is our lowest weighted area at 15% and has the lowest gap to close as well. As we consider how SMA3 differentiated funding will be allocated based on this type of model, then we want to strategically consider over the next 3 years if we have the weighting correct and how we can close the gaps of those higher weighted areas. This will take innovative and creative solutions that need to result in meeting annual business plan objectives and deliverables. This analysis ranks largest to smallest. The largest gaps to close by 2019-2020. Metrics not on this list have a gap to close of less than 2%. This list represents the areas where we have the most work to do in developing strategies and implementing projects to close these gaps. As we consider developing the next 3 years of business plans, we should have these metrics at the forefront of our minds. In reviewing these metrics, certain themes are revealed, such as our largest gaps are in the areas of applied research and excellence and impact. We already have a robust strategic plan to address this area led by Brent Wooten. E-learning is a theme among the large gapped areas, as is experiential learning or work-integrated learning. Also, the general notion of access and equity for female students, students with disabilities, Indigenous students, and others. Pathways to and from university are also highlighted. But not all metrics are equal because we have weighted innovation in teaching and learning excellence as our highest differentiator. This information will also assist us in developing our next strategic plan, academic plan, and of course the next 3 annual business plans.